If I had known this when I was younger, I would have saved myself from so much hurt, pain, and anger. In short, battle scars from this thing that we call life. We all know the hindsight is 2020, right? You look backwards at things, the picture's often more clear. But wouldn't it be nice if we can prevent a lot of this from happening in the first place? Save ourselves the trouble? That's what the goal of this channel is. My name is Dr. Sherman Rivers, and my whole purpose for being here or having this YouTube channel is to help those who are open to it, those who want to open up their minds and their eyes to see things in a different way, a different perspective, a different viewpoint. Hopefully, add some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that you can use as tools to simplify some of the challenges that you have in life, and in short, make things easier for yourself. Now, I wasted time, energy, effort, so much time, so much energy, so much effort, because I didn't know the difference between something we call self-esteem and something I like to call them-esteem. So if you're like me, best believe it's affecting you in some ways that you probably haven't even considered, you're not conscious of, but it is preventing you from becoming a better version of yourself. These things are happening in the background. So what I want to do is dive in a little bit in this video, expand on that, and just put, like my father used to say, put a bug in your ear so that you think about these things. You keep them top of mind. And once you do that, you're going to become more aware of how these things are affecting you, what's going on around you, what you're really seeing happening, not only around you, but within you, because that's where it counts, what's happening on the inside. And to preface this, I'll tell you a bit about myself. Coming up or in my youth, even on to later years, I always had something to prove, or felt like I had something to prove. Didn't really understand who I had something to prove to, but I felt like I had something to prove. And that can be a very confusing thing for a man, especially a young man, to feel like you need to prove yourself, to feel like you have something to prove, but not really understand what it is that you should be trying to prove and who you should be trying to prove that to. So I look back at some of the decisions that I made. That's part of the reason I went in the Army. That's part of the reason I became an infantry soldier. That's part of the reason I jumped out of a perfectly good aircraft. I had something to prove. I wanted to prove that I measured up. Now, maybe that had something to do with television. Maybe I watched too much Rambo. The list can go on and on and on. But the bottom line was I felt like I had to measure up to some invisible standard. I had to prove that I was a man. So my question to you, though, is what are you trying to prove? What do you feel the need to prove? And let's go even deeper. Who do you feel the need to prove that to? Now, that's the crux of this conversation. We're going to dive into that. Now, first and foremost, I need you to understand that this is not about me. I'm not on YouTube and spending my time and making videos for me. This is about you. I tell stories about me to give a little context, and maybe you can see where I'm coming from, and you can see how that would relate or could relate to certain situations in your life. But as we walk through this process, I implore you to keep yourself top of mind, to think about the things that you deal with on a daily basis. Think about some of the experiences that you've had in your life. Think about the goals that you have for yourself for the future. And as you do that, I promise you, this message will become crystal clear. You see, each of us deals with these issues relating to self-acceptance in our lives, and we deal with these issues on a daily basis. Self-acceptance. Self-esteem is part of that equation. Self-esteem is super important because it's one of the building blocks to our mindset. The way our mind functions is highly dependent upon how we view ourselves. So to open that can of worms up, I want to start with, as I usually do, with the definition. What is self-esteem? Self-esteem is essentially your confidence in your own worth or your own abilities, or self-respect, the way that you respect yourself, or if you do or do not even respect yourself. I find that often we as men think we do, but we really don't. We have this warped sense of what self-respect really means. Now you can go further and say it comes down to whether you like or value yourself as a person. The interesting thing about that, I think, is that we're dealing with time here. We're dealing with now and we're dealing with the future. Do you value or like or value yourself right now in your current state? Or is whether or not you like or value yourself determined by some magical point in the future when you accomplish some goal or some desire? Then you'll feel like you're worthy of liking yourself. Then you'll feel like you're worthy of valuing yourself. Now, this can happen in varying degrees. Some people may like themselves, but just not like themselves very much. You may value yourself, but have a low value of yourself. This is why self-esteem comes in multiple layers. There's actually 3 different levels of self-esteem. You have low self-esteem, you have healthy self-esteem, and then you have basically overboard or extra self-esteem. And this is when things become dangerous off in the other direction. You have this exaggerated view of yourself. So again, self-esteem can be low, it can be healthy, or it can be excessive. Now, before we go any further, what would you say that your self-esteem level is right now? How much do you like and value yourself? How much do you respect yourself? Would you say that you have low self-esteem? And if you do, I mean, a lot of people do, being aware of that means that you have somewhere to start. You have something to work on. Would you say you have healthy self-esteem? Would you say that your level of self-esteem is pretty much, the average? It's healthy. It's not harmful to yourself. Or would you admit that perhaps it's excessive and you may, I don't know if you could say think too highly of yourself, but maybe exaggerate your view of yourself. If you took a realistic view, if you stepped out of yourself and looked back at yourself, could it be maybe a little bit excessive? A lot of it may have something to do with the way you were born or your genetics even. You can be born with certain traits, and people can have different levels of these things based on, family traits, their genes. They have varying levels of self-esteem, and it can also be influenced by your environment, the current environment you live in, things that have happened to you in the past. There's a multitude of factors that can be involved that can affect your self-esteem. Here are a few of the things that you might want to consider or think about how they affect how you look at yourself, how you like yourself, how you value yourself. It could be something that's going on at work, something that's going on in school. You might have a crisis at work. You might have a crisis in your home life. Maybe a relationship thing. You have some challenges dealing with your significant other or your spouse. It can be a change in a life role. Say you're doing something that you're not very comfortable with. Say you used to feel like a very confident person, but what you're doing now, you're maybe not as familiar with that. So it's affecting how you view yourself, what type of value you assign for yourself, even the level of respect for yourself. These are all factors that can influence your self-esteem. So let's revisit that. Self-esteem is confidence in your own worth, your abilities, self-respect. Has to do with how much you like or you value yourself. Notice that everything that we've talked about thus far came from self. It was inner generated, right? This is all from your mind, how you perceive yourself. This is self-esteem, self-respect, the esteem that you have for yourself. So what's the difference between self-esteem and what I like to call them-esteem? And this is where it gets interesting. If self-esteem is confidence in your own worth, your own abilities, and self-respect. If that's what self-esteem is, then dem-esteem is that you have no confidence in your own worth and your own abilities. Not just a low level of confidence, but no confidence. You have no self-respect. Not low self-respect, but no self-respect. And the reason I say you don't have that is because, as we'll talk about later, these things aren't coming from you. You're not looking for them from you. You don't like yourself or value yourself as a person. You don't respect yourself. With dem-esteem, you're dependent upon getting these things from an external source. And this is a conversation I love to have about internal and external sources. We should be the source. We should generate this from within, from our own mind. That way we have control of it. That way we can actually do something about it. If we're dependent upon an external source for these basic things, these basic parts of our being, then we're putting ourselves in a very, very dangerous situation. So with dem-esteem, you put yourself in a position where you're now dependent on the approval of others. Them. You're dependent upon the approval of them. You want or need them to like you. You depend on them for your sense of value. And when I say them, I'm talking about anyone outside of yourself. Sometimes we say they, them, and we're really vague about who that is or what that is. In this case, it's anyone outside of you. You have the self, and then you have them. And in the sense of time comes into play right here as well. Even if you're not drawing these things that you need, you're going without it, you're not drawing it from them, you may have in your mind that at some point you will become worthy. At some point, if you do the right things, take the right actions, act the right way, be the right way, you'll be deserving of that, and you'll gain their respect at some point. That's where the time element comes in when we're talking about dem-esteem. It's important to recognize at this point that this is happening in various areas in your life. It's not just in one area of life. You may have these thoughts in terms of your value and how much you like yourself, and it may be pertaining to the physical sense. You feel a certain way about your body, and not to be confused with recognizing reality or desiring to make a change. No, I'm talking about your feeling of worth being tied to your physical body, right? So this could be in the area of physical. This could be in the area of mental. This can be in the area of financial. This is huge. This is what drives a lot of men. They don't feel like they have a value. There's conversations, and I think this is a good time to bring this up. You see a lot of conversations on the internet about high value men, right? And often this is centered about, there's a big portion of this in regards to your income, right? But that conversation doesn't go as deep as it should. We like to throw around these numbers, and you hear it, people talking about six figures and throwing out these arbitrary numbers. Funny thing about that is I know quite a few people who make six figures and they're broke. They earn over $100,000 a year and they're broke. Not just broke, but in debt, right? Financially unstable, but they earn six figures. Now, on the surface, somebody would tell you, if you make this amount of money, then you're a valuable man. But if you don't know what to do with that money, or you don't know how to handle that money, is that really a valuable trait? Right? So, as a recap there, it can be in multiple areas. It can be a physical thing. It can be a mental thing. It can be a financial thing. These things are happening all around us, and we just have to be aware of what's going on. We have to be cognizant of that. If not, we're being pushed around. We're like that ship without a rudder, right? An example, here's a story I like to use when I'm talking to people and trying to get them to understand, looking at certain concepts a different way. Just imagine a ship that had no captain, right? And you were to release this ship out into the ocean. It wouldn't be long before that ship strikes land again, probably ends up shipwrecked somewhere because it had no guide. You can point it to the destination and push it out in the water, but the odds of it getting there are slim to none, right? Very, very slim. You would have to have some extremely favorable winds for that ship to arrive at its destination. You need a captain on that ship to steer that ship, right? Now, in terms of self-esteem, that's you being the captain of your ship, being the captain of your soul, Invictus. Without that, that's like someone else controlling your ship from the outside. Somebody who's not even a passenger on that ship. Imagine receiving all these different directions. This way, that way, this way, that way. How long do you think, if ever, it would be before you get to where you need to be, to where you want to be? This is how important this is, this self-esteem. It really comes down to whether or not you're the one who decides your fate, or if that fate is decided by somebody else. You see how serious this is? It sounds trivial at first, but when you really think about it, this is your life. Do you want someone else at the helm of your ship? I don't. And I hope you don't either. There are different touch points to this. What I'll do is I'll provide access to a short PDF and some graphics on this exact point. I'll put a link in the description. So again, the difference between self-esteem and dem-esteem, and which one of these things that you allow to push and pull you through this thing called life will lead you to vastly different outcomes. Think about it. What type of decisions would you make going forward in your life when you like and value yourself as a person? And in contrast, what type of decisions will you make going forward in life when you don't like or value yourself, or you're focused on seeking approval from other people? Just imagine that. And sometimes this is happening without us even being aware. But just imagine the impact that has on you when you live your life seeking the approval of other people. You'll never have what you really want because you'll always be so focused on giving them what they want. Whose life is it anyway? Is it yours or is it theirs? So I have two questions for you. One, do you like and respect yourself? Do you like and respect yourself? And question number two, do you need the approval of others to feel worthy? Do you like, value, respect yourself? And do you need the approval of others in order for you to feel worthy? And if that's not you, have you ever felt that way? What do you have? What advice or insight would you offer to someone else if they're in this position in life, this state in life? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you need it, if you desire it, if you're curious, don't forget to download that PDF. The link is in the description block below. Hope to speak with you again soon. Peace.